Hey, welcome to part 3 of this mini-series thing here. So, I'm going to go into more detail regarding this device that I have specifically, which is the Novation 49SL Mark II, which is MK2 dot dot um not dot dot line. So, yeah, so this is a MIDI keyboard, and it also has MIDI controls up here. So there's faders, uh, there's knobs, there's different kinds of knobs, there's drum pads, there's also buttons, a few different rows of buttons. There's also a transport on here, which I'll go into more detail. And then there's the octave thing. Then there's a view button, so it brings up the Automap software that comes with this device. It brings up that sort of assigning part of the software, which is really handy to have an actual button that does that. And then the general thing about this thing is that there's 3 modes. There's the mixer mode. So this, when you're in the mixer mode, it assigns all of these controls to control the mixer within Cubase, or with whichever DAW you're working in. Excuse me. Then you have the instrument mode, which controls the VST instruments that you have within your DAW. And then there's the effects mode, which controls the individual plugins that you have on your DAW. So this is totally awesome, and that's why I use this device right here. So let's dive into the mixing part of this. So I'll give you guys a scenario here where I have a bunch of drum mics. All of these things were recorded audio, right? So in this case, I have an inner kick drum mic and an outer kick drum mic, and I'm gonna be mixing these together. I want to have a nice blend between the 2 mics, and the best and easiest way to have that blend is to have an individual fader for each of those mics, move them up and down, and find a nice mix between the 2, and then call it a day, right? So I'm gonna get my camera out again. So I'll show you that on here, how I accomplish that, and it speeds up the process quite extensively. So here are the faders, right? So this is the mixer function, this is the instrument function, and that's the effects function. So back into the mix function, I'll bring up my mix window onto monitor 1, and I'm going to bring this into a better view. Right here, I'll zoom out, and then I'll get this across there. Okay, so now let's look at the Automap software that comes with this hardware device. So yeah, I should kind of clarify things. So Automap is what the software is called that comes with this hardware device. So you can bring up the actual software controlling stuff if you hit this view button, and you see on the screen it tells you what is assigned to each of these controls. So right here you see that little highlight thing. Every time I touch these buttons, it gets highlighted in this window right here, and it shows me what is being controlled. So in this case, this is the drums volume fader right here. And it also brings up in the lower right hand corner this little screen, which tells me what it's controlling and then the value. So now I move this fader around. You can see in Cubase it's moving, and you can see in the software, the Automap software, it's moving. And then there's that small window on the right hand side. So if you didn't have this view thing, you still know what it's controlling and what the value is. So that's really, really handy. And then I also have a bunch of buttons. So I have 2 buttons, which is in line with this fader. So what I have is the mutes and the solos assigned to each of these sections. So there's the drums volume, there's the drums mute, and then the drums solo, all right here. High functionality, super awesome, really quick to be mixing with this kind of a setup. And then if you want to move to other tracks, because right now I'm stuck on these 8. So the next thing is to switch between banks. So I have 8 assigned things, but then you have this page button right here, which moves to the next 8 tracks. So you're working in banks, which is super awesome because then you're not limited to just 8. You can go way higher. You can go up to 17 pages, it looks like. So that's 17 times 8, which is insane. That's over 80, and even more than that. It's probably over 100. I'm not going to do math while I'm trying to do this video here. So anyways, we got those functions, the solo, the mute, the volume. Then we also have the buttons in between these knobs, here and here. We also have these knobs here, which are assigned to a bunch of other things. So I'm going to take this view window out. I'm going to go back into this view mode for you guys, and I'm going to show you specifically how I use this to my advantage very often. So let's move to where my kick in and my kick out. Right here, let's solo those. So I've just soloed them, and now I'll play them, and I'll try and mix between the two. So something like that sounds pretty good. So let's stop it, and cool. So we've mixed our 2 mics. Now I can do the same for the snares. So I have a top snare mic and a bottom snare mic. So I can mix between those 2. Cool, done. Let's move to the toms. Whatever, I can adjust all that stuff. I guess I don't really have to show you guys all that. So you get the point, right? You quickly switch between these things. You can solo, unsolo, move between the banks, etc., etc. Use the faders, use the knobs for all these controls, and it's awesome. And it makes the whole workflow just that much easier, more convenient, and it speeds up the process. So that is the mixer mode. Very cool. I use that a lot. The next mode is the instrument mode. So I don't actually have instruments in this project right now, but I'll add one just because. So let's go to massive. And every time you open up something that Automap is enabled, it automatically switches to that. So right now it just switched to controlling massive. And then you can see also, I didn't really explain this. This little window explains what each of these rows represents. And that's what these little buttons are, is to tell you. So this row, all of these buttons, this row does not have any active controls. So there's nothing assigned to these buttons. Right here, it tells you what that is assigned to, what this is assigned to, what these don't have any assigned, etc., etc. So if you see, I'm moving the F1 cut, which is filter 1 cut. and you can see on massive it's moving those knobs around. The oscillator 1 amplitude right there on the screen. Cool. So yeah, you just use all of these functions under the instrument. It controls instruments in Cubase or in your DAW. So that's cool. Now I can, with my channel controller, take off or hide that screen. I'm going to delete this though. Now in the effects mode, let's go into our group tracks because I have some stuff to show you. So let's say I was in the mixer window. There it is. Now I'm clicking into solid EQ, which is Automap enabled. It's switched to control that instead of the mixer. Now I have all my controls here. I have my high pass frequency right there, my low frequency amount, my low frequency hertz, the actual frequency, etc., etc. And you can control all this stuff, and then you can also assign whatever the hell you want to it, right? So you bring up your Automap window and you can learn whatever you want to these things, and you can also go into this screen right here and search for parameters and then change those parameters accordingly. So completely customizable. It's very handy, and most of this stuff I have not actually went in and configured, except for the mixer. I was really particular of what the mixer was going to do on this occasion, but Automap automatically assigns all these knobs to the functions, and it does a pretty good job of giving you what's useful and whatnot. Yeah, so that's the basic gist of it. Another thing that you can use is this speed dial button right here. So this is not assigned to anything in particular, but whatever your mouse is hovered over, it now controls that, whatever it's kind of hovering over, right? So it's handy. You can see it's going really slow, so it's not too much of a benefit. Like, you could just use your mouse and move it around, whatever. But whatever, it can come in handy at some point in time. So yeah, I think that about covers this this device functionality. Like I said, there's a bunch of other controllers that do the same kind of thing. It's not just innovation that makes this kind of useful stuff. Yeah, so that pretty much covers it. Maybe I should go into a little bit more detail of the actual software stuff here. So as far as what you can control within your DAW, you actually have to go into the Automap preference and software setup and all this stuff, and go and select what it is that you want enabled within Automap. So like in this case, Absinthe I have enabled. I have FM8, the battery, enhanced EQ, those VC plugins, the solid EQ, that kind of stuff. And then you can have Cubase's its own internal plugin sets. You can enable that, which I have. The Waves, you can do it. I've actually haven't tried it on the Waves plugins before. Etc., etc. So if you have VST, VS3s, VST3s, or RTASs, good to go. And that's how you set that up. And then you have a few more controls within the software. So yeah, once you kind of wrap your mind around the functionality and then get through all the technical difficulties, then you're in that sweet, valuable territory where it's actually improving all of your your workflow, like specifically in this mixer part of it. So yeah, hopefully that demonstrates its value. Um, that covers it for all of this hardware stuff. That's all I have. That's all I have to offer as far as advice goes. So basically, yeah, if you don't have any hardware devices, use your keyboard to your advantage. Use your mouse, all this crap, whatever. If you have the money that you can afford to buy these hardware devices, go and find the ones that are going to be particular to what you want your hardware devices to do. So in my case, I'm using Cubase. These controllers work really well with Cubase because they're made for it. It has all these awesome functions. Cool. Done. I bought these. I also bought this particular device because I wanted a MIDI keyboard and I also wanted extra functionality um, along with it. So that's why I bought this device. And as far as program wise, this DAW I bought Cubase quite a while ago because, first of all, I've watched a lot of videos and saw its functionality, and then I tried it and I really liked it, so that's why I ended up using Cubase, and I kind of don't regret it whatsoever. Kind of, like, I mean, each DAW has its own set of awesome functionalities, like Ableton Live, you have all those little blocks. So it's really easy to form a song because there's these blocks and you can just play the blocks. And I call them blocks, but I don't know. If you've used Live, you know what I'm talking about. There's the two different windows. There's the audio window where you actually make your recordings, and then there's the other window where there's those little blocks with your MIDI information where you create all your MIDI stuff. So that's a really big part of what Live is all about, is that. And you can't get that in Cubase or in Pro Tools or in Logic. At least I don't think in Logic. Maybe there's something new. Who knows? So yeah, just look into what you want for a DAW. That's the first and foremost. Then look into controllers because they might be particular to certain DAWs. And then get used to your stuff. And then you will, just in time, essentially, you'll get used to all your whatever you're using, and then your workflow will improve just by regular usage. So yeah, that was a mouthful. So now, thanks for watching this. I might have a last part as far as what Cubase has to offer. So certain workflow functions that Cubase has to offer. So that'll be in the next video.